everybody? So, how is everybody today? Let's see, is there anybody today yet? Not yet. Okay, fine. We'll wait a second. I'm expecting a raid. Dragon Love Water, good morning. How are you doing? Glad to see somebody's here. Isaac Tom is just finishing up. She should be raiding shortly, so we'll have a few more people in. So I'm going to kind of just take my time until they get here. That way I don't have to repeat myself. So how are you doing today, Dragon? Chillin' at your PC eating nachos for breakfast. Ooh, that's a nice breakfast. Are the volume levels okay? Can you hear the music in the background? And can you hear my voice? And here comes the raid. Good evening, Isaac. How you doing? E-Song says volumes are good. Hello, E-Songbird. Glad to see you. That was a fun little exercise in emote building. There's been a lot of that going on in the World Anvil, in the Anvilite streamer core. So we have a bunch of people in here. There's Delia and Mr. Burb. How are we doing today? How's things in Estonia? Okay, I want to start, first of all, just by a quick, I know I've mentioned in a few of the streams last night, just in case we have any technical difficulties today, we have something, or I have something anyway, other than Q to blame them on. What you're looking at on the screen right now is the U.S. National Hurricane Center projection map of Tropical Storm Isaias, and the storm right now, because it's 10 o'clock, the storm right now is somewhere, right about over the top of Washington, D.C., and if you see this black circle S, I live under that, okay? I live right under the middle of that. The good news is the storm itself is moving at about 35 miles an hour, which means it's going to just kind of run right through. The forecasts for my neighborhood are somewhere around 11:30. The wind should start picking up. That's in about an hour and a half. The wind should start picking up, and it should be pretty much blown through completely in about 3 hours. So, we've had worse. It'll be real windy. We'll get a couple inches of rain, but as long as it's a fast-moving storm, it shouldn't be too bad. The danger, of course, is with the winds that power and or communication lines are going to get knocked down. So if all of a sudden I disappear stream-wise, it's almost certainly not because my house exploded. It is because a power line somewhere got knocked down, or a cable, communication line got knocked down somewhere. So with that out of the way, let's get to going on what we're going to be working on today. And I'm not sure what I'm going to be working on today. To be perfectly honest, I didn't want to get too deep into something that I wouldn't want to, that I'd have to interrupt. If I do have to move or do anything strange or odd, with the weather today. Or worse, if I'm like half in the middle of something and all of a sudden everything goes dark. Everything is either strapped down or brought inside. We've gone through all of that prep. we get enough. I mean, we're not Florida. We don't get the big or New Orleans. We don't get the huge big nasties. But in New Jersey, I'll tell you what we're used to is, the hurricanes come in, they devastate the Bahamas, they devastate Florida, they do a horrible job in like South Carolina, and then everybody ignores them and forgets them, and that's when they come through New Jersey. So, so we're used to having storms that have been downgraded from major hurricanes to good-sized tropical storms come through and over the top of us. We've gotten pretty good at dealing with that. So, fingers crossed we'll not have any major problems with this one either. Like I said, there's going to be some local flooding. I don't have a basement, so I don't have to worry about that. I don't live on the shore, so I don't have to worry about storm surges. If storm surge comes to my house, then, to be perfectly honest, a little bit of water is the least of my problems, because that means there's about 70 miles of ocean that didn't used to be there between me and the Atlantic. Storm Brill should be in charge of storms, yeah. So, all right. So anyway, to move on, for the last couple of days, I've been working on this map that you're looking at, and with some help of various people, I've been plugging in some names of things, and I've actually gone and done a few more. You'll notice I split the Elven ring so that it doesn't, so that it actually points to maps. The basin wall, I'm actually going to split the eastern basin wall into the eastern and southern too. But I've got my mountain ranges all done. One interesting thing, you folks might get a kick out of this. I went and put in all my dwarven delves. And when I went back and looked at my notes, I realized that the waking delve, which is the most important of all my delves, I had originally, when we were doing the maps, I had put it down here. And down here isn't where it goes up here. So that solved this problem, the dwarfwood forest problem, because now it can be just one big forest. Because that mountain range, although there might be interesting things happening in it, it's not a dwarven delve. I don't need to have another pop-up for that mountain area. So that problem got solved. So I know E Songbird, you were asking where the dwarves live. Here's a picture of where the dwarves live. And you can see I did highlight the. Let me turn off the forest for a minute. I highlighted the home one in a slightly brighter red. You'll see all the rest of them are mountains, mostly big mountains. Some of them aren't quite so distinguishable, but that's fine. Here's an interesting one that I'm going to have fun with someday in the future. Right now it's simply called the Lost Delve, the only dwarven citadel ever to fall. The very mountain in which the Coast Delve, which is what it was called at the time, the very mountain in which the Coast Delve was located was cast down by divine powers during the Great Strife. It is now referred to as the Lost Delve. Few, if any, traces of it remain above the surface. You'll notice there is no mountain there. All right. Someday I can build really, really nice dungeon crawls. And like I said, that's my Mines of Moria right there. I mean, it doesn't need to have a mountain on top of it to be a very interesting exploration point. And so there's going to be plenty of mines and city remnants and destruction and things below the ground. And of course, since the good folk are all gone, that leaves plenty of room for the bad folk to move in. So someday we'll have adventures there, I'm sure, but not for a while. So that's just a little seed I have planted. So anyway, what I was going to start doing today, what I want to try to get into, again, is a schedule thing. I want to focus on Sundays for actually working with maps like this. Um, on Thursdays, I want to focus on actually starting to write adventure module document kind of stuff, and explore some of the campaign aspects of World Anvil. And I'm leaving Tuesdays for the plain vanilla kind of world building. But I do want to still kind of stay on the focus of the whole Cartyrion Atlas. Stormbrill sells Storm and accessories. Magic Shop, yeah, one of those little pop-up kiosks in a mall somewhere, maybe. So anyway, what I was thinking of doing was actually starting to put some of the articles behind some of the geographic features, so that I can, end up assembling Atlas documentation in World Anvil for the world. Now the funny thing is that kind of suggests that, I have all of these things, all of these little article stubs to go through. But the interesting thing is now, for example, if we take, let's start with the Teeth of the Sea, because that's actually in one of the areas that I need to work on. Do I have an article for the Teeth of the Sea? It's working on it. Okay. Now, we all just went through 30 days of dealing with, yes, thank you for the hydrate. And the posture check. I kind of have to lean forward when I'm typing, unfortunately, but those occasional posture checks to make me at least stretch back a little bit are not a bad thing. We all just went through 30 days of being handed templates that had lots and lots of stuff in them that we didn't want to use to answer the prompts, because we wanted to focus our articles on the prompt responses. Well, now it's probably going to be the other way around. All right, this article, for example, all right, for the Teeth of the Sea, what is it? It is let's see, do we have mountain range in here? Mountain range, there we go. All right, but this is an encyclopedia article or a Wikipedia article or whatever you want to call it. So in this case, I'll have to come back to parent location, but in this case, I do want to pay attention to a lot of these things. Maybe not all of them, but I'm going to want to put something, for example, for a mountain range. All right. I'm going to want to fill geography, obviously. I'm going to want to fill flora and fauna, or at least put something in there. Definitely going to want to put in natural resources. Are there mines here? Are there, that sort of thing. Is that all that comes in this template? No, this is an easy one then. I don't think I have to worry about, there might be alternative names. I don't really have any owning organizations, at least not for this one. For some of the others, that might be different. But again, for the purpose of the articles that I'm doing now, I actually need to pay attention. Tourism might apply in some cases, but it's probably not a good title to have in here. And history may or may not apply. So we'll just put a little maybe in there as a tickler. So the part of the issue though is when I'm talking about these, like for example geography, when you describe a mountain range, All right, what do you describe? You need to just, let's start putting some notes in here. Highest peaks, dimensions of the range, bordering areas, just to make it, so the text has something to it to explain. That's basically what we're talking about. Under natural resources, what sort of stuff like that. And as far as flora and fauna, who am I gonna what kind of nasties am I gonna put here? And then I don't want these articles, by the way, don't have to be too long. I don't have 300 word limits for these. They can be short, they can be long. The idea for these articles ultimately is so that, if a player wants to see, okay, we have to go in or through this mountain range. What do we expect? They can pop up this article and get an idea, or at least get the sort of information that an adventurer in the world should have at least heard of about the area. So how did I get started streaming? Gift of Gabby asks. On day one of summer camp, actually a few days before summer camp, the few people that had already been streaming were getting really, the hype was starting to build for summer camp. And the few people that had been streaming were starting to talk about how they were going to focus their streams on summer camp. And last winter, I started dabbling in YouTube production, and never really thought about, I was doing YouTube productions on world building, on building my world. This is before I had discovered World Anvil. Never gave any thought to Twitch at that time, because my thought was, first of all, who's going to care and who's going to watch a couple hours of me sitting here, writing documents about the world. Well, then I discovered World Anvil and found out that there are people who will sit and watch me write documents, and it will actually help me with that process. So I decided to just give it a shot. I already had the software downloaded. I had the camera. I have the green screen behind me because like I said, I had started to set all this up for YouTube. So it was an easy, I didn't have any real major setup stuff to do. And you don't, by the way, need all of that good stuff. The software is, OBS Studio is free, which is the main, that all of the image stuff that you see on the screen, with the frames and all of and the other little, the little pictures and icons and things. That's all OBS Studio. That's a free software package. I just decided to give it a go, and I'm thrilled that I did. It's been a blast. I plan on continuing to do it. And if half a dozen, 10, 12 people are joining me a couple times a week as I'm doing this, then I have company and have an opportunity to help other people too, because there's things that I'm discovering that other people need, and things that other people know that that they can help me. On Sunday, Delian was a fantastic help, or Tillers rather. Delian's have fantastic help anyway too. Don't get me wrong, Deal, but Tillers was a great help with working with the maps and the pins, and Setting up the different types of tags and flags on a map. Because I knew all that stuff was there, but I hadn't played with it. So that sort of sharing is one of the beautiful things about the streaming. Before I forget, by the way, another couple of real quick announcements. As you see my Moobot roll by in the chat, there's one or two new ones up there. One of them that you'll see come by, and actually I'll just pop it up here now so that I do have a Discord server, and I spent a little time. Originally I had set it up to just kind of work with my Patreon, but I did set it up to be a little more open-ended. So anyone and everyone here is welcome to join the Discord server, where obviously the focus is going to be on my world, but depending on what, how many people come in and what we do, I'll probably set up some general areas, very similar to the way WD Michael has his Discord set up. I'll set up some sharing channels as well, so I can see what well, not only just me, but people on the Discord can see what you guys are doing. We can share a little stuff there. Obviously you want to share it on World Anvil as well, but sometimes the World Anvil Discord server gets so busy that you pop something up that you hope people will see, and 2 minutes later it's 125 messages into the history. So we with a slightly smaller focused crowd, maybe we can have a little bit more sharing. I'm not suggesting that you don't put stuff in World Anvil. Put it in both places. So there's that. Oh yeah, and Moobot just came up with the other one that I wanted to announce. That's my YouTube channel. I am putting all of these streams over on YouTube, and right now I'm in the process of getting all of my summer camp streams moved over. I kind of fell behind, but I'm catching up. Especially the last half of July. If you had an article that I read and you want to see or hear that review again, I've in the description section of each of the stream videos, I did include a list of which articles I reviewed. So you can, my YouTube link is giving a 404. Well, that's not good. All right, I'll have to fix that. I'm not going to fight with that right now. I'm not going to waste people's time on that, but I will get that fixed, and I will let people know. Tell you what, if the Discord invite works, jump on there, and I'll make sure I'll get the YouTube channel posted in the Discord, and then I'll fix it before the next stream. Like I said, that kind of mess could take forever to fix, to clean. I probably missed a character. YouTube channel links are a pain in the neck when you're not, if you're not a partner that gets to actually put a name on the channel. Isaac, do you think it's something quick and simple? Or is it's just broken? Yeah. Is there a period at the end of that? Wait, maybe I will be able to fix this real quick. Hold on a second. Let me just check this real quick. Did it do me the favor of putting a period on the end of something that it shouldn't have? By the way, Moobot is free too. That's Discord. I didn't want Discord. I want YouTube. Aha! There was a period on the end of that. There isn't supposed to be a period on the end of that. Try that. See if that works. I'll wait a second and see if that works. If that doesn't work, then I will hunt it down and I will post in the Discord. There we go. I don't know if it was me with the ingrained have to put a period before you start a new sentence, or if the editor did me the favor of ending the sentence for me. But there was an extra period. There was a period stuck on the end of the link. So, all right, and yeah, by the way, I would appreciate subscribes on the YouTube channel. Keep in mind the word subscribe means something different in YouTube. YouTube subscribe is the same as a Twitch follow. It doesn't cost you anything. You will or can get notifications. So, question: when starting the design of a TTRPG setting or world, what's the first thing someone should consider or write about? There's probably a lot of answers to that, but I'll tell you my approach. Building a role-playing environment is interesting. You've probably heard a lot of the discussions on plotter versus pantser versus plantser. Do you just wing it, or do you plan it all out? It is impossible to completely plot a role-playing world. It's impossible it's impossible to plot it to the detail that a novelist, or that a writer could. And that's because at the bottom end of things, it's the players that decide, where things go and how things work and what NPCs live and die and all that sort of thing. But at the top end, it's your job, and it's our job as world builders and as dungeon masters to provide the environment in which the players can play. My personal approach has always been, if the gods are important in the world, and if the world exists because of the gods, then the first thing I need to do is create the gods. All right, and that's what I did here. And by the way, you'll actually, again, I haven't got it all caught up into World Anvil yet, but the 10 or so videos that are on YouTube, back from December, January up through March, describe my process of putting together the Pantheon, and describing how the people of the world came to be, and then I started getting into the general, okay, where do the people get planted? The map that you saw a second ago. In fact, yeah, I shouldn't be looking at this anymore. We could be looking at that. All right, this map was built back in those times, and I figured out where the delves were and where the elven forests were and all that sort of thing, to just get a general lay of the land. So again, my approach is at least have an idea of what your deity pantheon is going to look like. Then you can start working about the rough geography of the world. Get a world, figure out where your continents are, your mountain ranges, your big forests, and that sort of thing. And then start zooming in and focusing in on the areas that you're going to actually be playing in. Pardon me just a second. One thing I'm hoping is that this tropical storm rain knocks all of the pollen out of the air. That would be good. So anyway, like I said, that's my approach. And once you get to the region, you basically start zeroing down. Eventually, can the players travel the whole world? Sure. But they're not going to start traveling the whole world unless of course you're starting a campaign for high-level characters that have access to either teleportation or other major transportation devices. So in my case, for example, I'm laying out the really high-level geography of the whole world, like where the major dwarven delves are, because every dwarf is going to know where all the major dwarven delves are. Or every dwarf, rather, is going to know where all the delves are. Every elf is going to know where the 7 great forests are. So I need to know a little bit about that. All right. Most of the humans will have at least heard of half, if not all, of the major cities. All right. Just like today. I mean, even if you can't find it on a map, you've heard of Hong Kong. If anybody lives in that area, of course, you're going to know more about it than people who live on the other side of the planet. All right, I know kind of where Melbourne is. I know kind of where, Perth is. I know much more detail where New York City, Philadelphia, Miami, etc. are. The same thing is going to be true here. So you want to at least, have some of those things identified. You don't have to get into detail, though. I am not going to spend. It's going to be a long time before I spend a lot of time and effort, for example, describing the Sandhold. It's one of the major dwarven delves. It's near the desert. Lots of dwarves live there. That's all I need to know right now. All right. I might spend a little more time on the Waking Delve just because it's important to the history of every dwarf on the planet. All right, because ultimately every dwarf can trace themselves back to there. The delves I am going to focus on that are going to get a lot more attention, though, because this is the area that I'm really working on for my early stuff. So the Lonely Delve, Iron Hill Delve, and the Glitter Hold, they're going to need to get a little more detail. All right. This forest is getting a lot of detail because the players, I'm starting with first level characters, and they're plunk right in the middle of this forest. So that's going to need detail. There are a couple cities. Again, there's cities all over the world, but these are the only 2 that really matter. Again, that need any sort of detail at all. At the very beginning. And as far as mountain ranges are concerned, again, they're all defined, but it's this one that comes down here and this one that comes over here that are the 2 that matter. So, again, as you're world building, lay out the skeleton, and then you start putting meat on the skeleton, but you put meat on the skeleton in the areas where you need it. Let's get caught up because the chat went crazy. Let's see. Players are wild. Yes, they are. And unless you railroad your players, you can't fully plan. And if you're going to railroad them that much, write a book. I mean, you're inevitably gonna railroad them. All right, because you're building a campaign. I mean, let's face it. Every campaign that's ever published, all right, they need to get to the end. All right. The difference between, though, a quote unquote railroading game master and not is the railroad, the not railroad conductor has got enough of his world built so that if the players insist on taking little side trips and side tracks, you can let them, and you can have adventures for them. All right, and the challenge for you then becomes, how do you weave into those side adventures the incentive for them to get back on the track? But you have to kind of make it their idea, and that's the real challenge. All right, if you can successfully guide the players down the long path that you want without them realizing they're being guided, then you are successful. And then you will be very successful. Your players will think you're great. Hey, we could do anything we wanted, and we still had all this great adventure. That takes a lot of thought and planning, though. I mean, if you think about it, if you buy a published module and you start running that module, and that module has the players, they have to go into city X. I mean, let's say in this example, they had to go to Enmere. And for some reason, one of the players who used to be from Enmir says, "Nope, I'm not going back to Enmir. I'm never going back to Enmir. I've decided my character will never set foot in Enmir again." If we have to do something, if we have to buy something or find something, let's find it in another city. So off they go to some other city. I've got to deal with that. I've either got to move the objective that they had to meet into that other city, or I have to find some other good reason to get them back to Enmir, or something in between. Let's see, Gift of Gavi, Egg PC completely sidetracked. Main plan. Yeah, I mean you can. You can completely. One character can completely shift. A plot, and you have to deal with that. Barbarossa, I just started working on my Pantheon ideas and powerful entities in it. Right now I have a race called the Firstborn, who are the first beings created by the gods who were left behind because they could manipulate and control reality, but could not create anything, who act as patrons for the warlocks and such. Yeah, okay, that's good. You'll see I have not the same history, but my Pantheon. All right, there's this one super guy who he runs around the universe building planets, and he's simply called the Creator of Worlds. And he'll pop into space somewhere, build a planet, and not populate it, not put any people on it, not even put any plants or animals on it. He'll just build the planet and say, "Yep, okay, I'm done," and off he goes to do it somewhere else. He doesn't really have believers or clerics or anything because he's not there. All right, everybody's taught that he exists, but he's not a worshipped god because he goes off and does his own thing. He's not ever around. But there are whole races of super beings that follow him around, and after he plants a world, they kind of take over, and then they move in, and each one of them starts laying down their vision of what the world should look like. So you have the elven gods show up, and they in my case the elven gods were the first ones there. So they're the ones that got to lay down all of the plants and basic animals. And then they created the Fae, the whole range of Fae races, and then they created the elves. And then the dwarf gods showed up, and they created, they looked around and said, well, the forests are all taken. I'm going to take the mountains, and they built dwarves in the mountains. And then the goblin gods showed up, and they said, well, everything is taken, so I'm going to just create my people scattered all over the place. All right, the human gods did the same thing. All right, and I didn't forget gnomes. In my case, in my world, gnomes are interesting. I think I've said this on a stream before, but in the current, in the old Dungeons and Dragons, gnomes were actually they were tied to dwarves, and to me personally, gnomes were always closer to dwarves than they were to elves. But somewhere along the line, the gnomes became associated with the Fae, who are associated with the elves. So in the current gaming mindsets for both Pathfinder and Dungeons and Dragons, which, let's face it, means about 90% of the market that I'm trying to hit, the gnomes are quasi-Fae creatures. So in my world, as kind of a concession to that, without completely giving up on my own personal beliefs, I have the gnomes were basically a joint effort between the goddess who was partly responsible for creating the elves, and the goddess who was partly responsible for creating the dwarves. The two of them got together over coffee, had a little chat about their creatures, about their children, decided they would try to create yet another race that mix the best features of both, and that's where the gnomes came from. Um, so the gnomes, so that's my gnomes. Halflings, by the way, were created by the human gods. Again, it was we created the humans, but we didn't quite get it right. They were a little too serious and stoic and ambitious. So let's create something that's, that's a little happier, and that's why we have halflings. And there's others, besides those. Those are the main ones. You'll notice that bunch maps to the Pathfinder 2 Core Rulebook 1 list of player races. But there are others. I mean, there was another race of super beings that came in and created the lizard men, or the lizard folk. There's one that created dragons. There's one that created the giants. There's one that created the orcs. And I don't mean just one god. I mean a whole group of these super type beings. Do the halflings have youngest child syndrome? No. The halflings are very happy and jolly in my world. Now, of course, not every one. There's a wide range of personalities in every race. But as a race, the halflings, while they certainly care about their needs and see to their needs, they take life a little less seriously than the humans do. And yes, that's very heavily inspired by the Tolkien image of hobbits, but the whole life in the Shire thing. So did I miss anything? Going back, talking about the NSL. Oh boy, does it take a lot of work. It does. I mean, but then again, if you're the game master and the world builder, I mean, hopefully this is where you derive your greatest pleasure in role playing. I mean, I love to play characters too. The funny thing is, I find myself having, when I'm playing, as opposed to DMing, I have to think a lot harder and in a lot more concentrated fashion, but only during the game sessions. When the game is over, I'm done. I can unwind. I can recap in my head how did I do? What would I want to do next? But I don't have to carry anything over from session to session, really. If you're the dungeon master, and especially if you're working in a homebrew world, you're thinking about it constantly. All right, you're constantly anticipating what are the players going to do, during the next session. What might they possibly do to derail what I have planned? How can I deal with that? It's a constant thing. So and you really have to love it to stick with it and be good at it. It's easy to get frustrated sometimes. Try not to. If that's what you love, if you love being, this is your chance to be a mini god. I mean, at the table you're the ultimate power, but it's your world, it's your geography, it's your history. Your world can be whatever you want. E-Song headed out. Okay. Who doesn't want second breakfast? Yes. By the way, the halflings in my world. In my world, the time of day, there might be clocks in various places, but they don't think of hours. Basically, the day is divided into 8 sections, eight approximately 3-hour, time sections that are just called watches, and they have names, like the noon watch, which is actually from like 10:30 in the morning till about 1:30 in the afternoon. Yeah, they're kind of centered around. They centered them on noon and midnight because those are the only sun up and sundown might change. Although that's what's funny is when I did this at first, my thought was that sun up and sundown would vary, with the time of the year, just like they do on Earth. But the reason they vary on Earth is because the Earth is tilted, and not only does that introduce longer and shorter days, but it also introduces the whole aspect of You know, it's summer in the north and winter in the south. You know, and vice versa. And I've fairly recently decided I really don't want to deal with that. You know, because a lot of my calendar stuff is seasonal based, and I didn't want to deal with the fact that, oh well, wait, these guys down here wouldn't call this the planting time; it's the harvest time. And there's a real quick way to fix that. All right, that a lot of people don't think about, and that is simply to say that the axis tilt of the planet is 0. All right, if the axis tilt of the planet is 0, and the only thing that determines summer and winter is proximity to the sun, then it's spring from the North Pole to the South Pole, and it's winter from the North Pole to the South Pole, and it's summer from the North Pole to the South Pole. So you get to throw all that out, and sunrise and sunset happen at the same time every day. So it makes calendar management and timekeeping a lot easier to just say 0 tilt. So I'm going with that. It's simple. Again, from a game playing standpoint, those are two things that really aren't important to the mechanics of your game, but they're the kind of things, especially if you have a rules lawyery type player, they're the ones that are going to keep saying, well, wait a minute, it's winter. Aren't the days shorter? No, they're not. They're not shorter on my world. They're all the same. You got 12 hours on, 12 hours off. That's it. So it's a way to make trivial problems go away. And again, as a world builder or dungeon master in an RPG setting, that's what you look for. All right, what can I do in my world design that can make trivial, unimportant details go away? You know, I mean, again, all these games have mechanics about long and short rests. All right, do you really want to deal with the fact that, well, they're way up north and it's high summer, so the sun doesn't go down until 10:30 at night, and it's going to come back up at 2 in the morning. You know, so there's really only 4 hours of night. And what does that do to their sleep schedule? You don't want to deal with that stuff. All right? The sun comes up at around 6 in the morning. It goes down at around 6 in the evening. You know, you have dusk from about 4:30 to 7:30 every day. Problem solved. Move on. Next real problem. Because you don't want to get bogged down in silly things like that. So here we go. Barbarossa says, yes, my world, Nova Aedas, is a bit different. I love the traditional dark medieval fantasy. I fell in love with this game called Greedfall. Age of colonialism, age of renaissance. Is yours the Age of Sail world? Yeah, well, what you're describing, though, is not so much the geography of the world. Although if you're going to focus on Age of Sail, you're obviously going to need lots of water, lots of ocean, and lots of islands, perhaps. What you're dealing with is a different thing, and we can get into that now too. And that is the let's call it the historical flavor. All right, you know, yeah. Do you want to set your world in, you know, medieval, you know, in Dark Ages time? You know, what's the technology base? And what makes it interesting is because there's magic. Well, if there's magic in your world. If there's not magic in your world, you can look to our history and just pick an era. You know, do you want this to be, you know, Dark Ages, you know, after the fall of some major empire, but before, you know, before civilization started really picking up again? You know, do you want it to be Renaissance time? Do you want it to be, you know, Roman Empire kind of time? You know, the time of an ancient empire. You can pick one of those and go with it, and that's going to direct your choices of technology and your choices of architecture and all that sort of thing. In a world where there's magic, things are going to be a little different. You don't need technology to advance in order for people to be comfortable. You know, if you think about it, You can be living in a in a 1200s AD style home, um, but have the magical equivalent of electric light in the house, so you're comfortable. Um, you get a lot of weird things like that. All you need is what a magic, a rock that was, that somebody cast a continual light spell on, and now you've got a light bulb that lasts forever. Um, and when you have things like that, when you're comfortable, you don't need to push and drive new technology. So to me anyway, it seems that if you have magic making people comfortable, then it's going to stagnate the progress that our Earth had to go through, for good or bad. The same thing with Age of Sail. All right, we went from sail, Earth went from sail to steam to whatever, because they wanted to get from point A to point B faster and more reliably. Well, if you have a sailing ship, you have to go where the winds are, and even then, sometimes the winds die down, and sometimes the winds blow the wrong way. All right, those problems go away if you have a steamship. So we progressed from A to B. Well, if you solve those problems by putting a mage on the aft castle, and tell him, whenever the wind dies down, throw a gust of wind into the sails, then you don't need steam power anymore. All right, because now your sailing ships, are just fine. So the Age of Sail is going to last a lot longer. You don't have the same navigation problems. All right, if you have, if you have a magic user on board ship that can actually direct the direction of, or whether it's a druid or a mage, somebody who can actually point the wind in the right direction. You don't have to worry about, travel times become faster because you don't have to deal with tacking against the wind if you're going the wrong way, or multiple routes. If you look into the Age of Sail, you realize that the trade routes between Europe and America were based on ocean currents and prevailing winds, and they kind of formed a circuit. So that if you were going in one direction, you took this route. If you were going in another direction, you took a completely different route. You don't have to do that if you get to control the direction. Do you need air power? Do you need air travel? Well, you can come up with air travel again. A sufficiently powerful mage. And this is where you can start getting into the whole spelljammer thing. A sufficiently powerful mage can just float. Now I don't even need water for my ship, my sailing ship. I can just levitate it 100 feet, 200 feet in the air, and blow wind in the sails, and off I go. So magic colors the world, and then after that, it's just a matter of how do you want your people living. Even farming doesn't have to start relying on heavy technology if the local priest or druid can come by once a year and bless the soil, and it actually changes how the soil produces. Now your food productions are sufficient. So there's a lot of you get a lot, and my point is that you don't really have to overthink all of this. The real point is that because those things exist, at least if you're using magic, especially high magic, then you have a ton of leeway as far as, again, what kind of culture are the people living in. It's perfectly perfectly comfortable for me to have, large cities but small villages and hamlets that are reminiscent of, somewhere around the 1200s, 1300s, but it doesn't have to, with or without the occasional plague. I mean, that's but life is, even in the towns and villages, life is more or less pastoral. It's peaceful, until the army of trolls comes rolling through town. That becomes the new problem. in a fantasy world too. Now it's not necessarily kingdoms fighting each other, although I do have some of that in my world. It's what nasty creatures do I have to worry about if I leave town and head down the forest road? What nasty creatures do I have to worry about invading my town? Um, you know, so again, those choices are flavored by first of all by the level of magic in your world, and second of all by what you want to do. So if you want to do Renaissance, Renaissance Age of Sail kind of thing, late Renaissance. It sounds like you're shooting for something like 1700s, maybe late 16, early 1700s, and go for it. And because you want your players again to have a frame of reference, that's the other thing. Could you completely turn things on end? Could you have ancient Mesopotamia set in a 1700s Age of Sail world? Yeah, you could. And if you want to, go for it. But your players are going to have a harder time with that frame of reference. Maybe they want that. Maybe they want that challenge. This is where it's important to also know your players and ask your players what they're interested in. Of course, if you're building for the market, then you have to just kind of think about the average player. All right, and unfortunately, sometimes the average player is not the most interesting player. I would love. I'm really hoping I get a chance to play a few games with some of the people here on in World Anvil and in the Streamer Core, because we're all world builders. We've all discussed these things. We've all seen these things. So we all bring not only a wealth of knowledge about different settings and sites and behaviors and things, but the flavors that we've all picked up from our players over the years. It's kind of like, I see it as an opportunity to have a good, a real interesting and challenging. I think I'd be afraid to Dungeon Master or to Game Master a group of us, because we're going to be challenging, but it'll be fun. If you're looking to market your stuff, though, you have to appeal to the average player. All right. If you build a module that requires the players to understand ancient Rome, then you're only going to sell it to the few tables that understand ancient Rome. All right. Your typical, I want the orc to come out of the forest so I can hit it with my rapier. Well, sorry, rapiers don't exist here. They're not going to buy the module. So you have to, that's one of the unfortunate things, and I guess writers have the same problem. If you're writing for your art, then you can write whatever you want. If you're writing for the market, then some of your choices are made for you, whether you like them or not. Enazel, I'm glad I never planned for average players. I only need to consider the players you run for or locally may run for. Yeah, well, again, if you're only that's the other thing. If you're world building for your campaign, for your private group, then you build for that group. And but even there, ask them, what do you want? So I hear, I don't know if you guys can hear it, but I'm starting to hear heavy rain starting to fall. So getting here a little bit early, but that's okay. I don't hear any wind yet, though. That's a good thing. But I think the first good bands of Storm are finally getting to me, and we're an hour in. Hopefully we'll make the last hour. So this is fun. I'm enjoying this. Like I said, I didn't really have any hard work that I needed to get into anyway. So, any more world building questions, or do we want to keep going down this path? Barbarossa, you're worried about your setting. Worried about it? Why? What are you looking to build a setting for you to play in, or for for you to market. Because if it's for you to play in, um, don't be so worried. What your challenge might be is not. You might still have a selling. You might still have a selling issue, but what you're gonna need to do. And somebody was talking about this last night on a stream too. Um, you're gonna know your world very well, and you're gonna probably game master it. So you don't have to worry. You've already made the sale to yourself. In other words, what you're going to need to do is make sure you have a player group that's willing to give it a shot. So your challenge is going to not so much be what do you put in your world, because you're already building it, but how do you pitch it to a bunch of prospective players. And this is where we start talking about the elevator pitch. What you're going to want to do is, and you've started to do it, especially like the Age of Sail. Age of Sail is exciting, by the way. People hear Age of Sail. A lot of people hear Age of Sail. Yeah, I want to do that. I want to play with that. And that's why when I started coming up with the Seafarer Dwarves idea, I know a lot of people in World Anvil were like, "That's really cool. I want to play those." Who wouldn't want to play? 35 Gimlis on a ship at sea, raiding the high seas. You need to come up with the 10-sentence, 2-minute, 3-minute pitch. We people call it the elevator pitch. If you're trying, and that comes from just and basic entrepreneurship. You get into an elevator with the guy who's got the money, and you want him to back you. All right, you've got from the time that the elevator door closes to the time the elevator door opens on his floor. All right, he's a captive audience. So for that short time period, you get to pitch your world, and the idea is for you to say, in as few words as possible, things that excite him and make him say to you, keep going, come get off with me and talk to me here. All right. If you don't, then he's going to get off the elevator and you're done. All right. So yeah, like NSL says, start playing with it. You can always tweak it for the market, and that's that's something that I'm definitely doing. I have a few playtest groups, but admittedly they're 3 groups I've gamed with, and 2 of them are very similar. In taste and flavor, and even in behavior. One of them is a little different. One of them is a little more challenging because it's got a few guys in it that are like constantly looking to how can I break the dungeon master, which is a different challenge all its own, whether you're doing can modules or your own world. But they're, I'm getting feedback from them. I am going to want to do another, I got enough feedback from them to basically do my first, let's call it my, to get from draft 1 to draft 2 of my first adventure arc, which is something that I'm going to start doing, by the way, on streams, possibly on Thursday. But after I get to draft 2, I'm going to still want to play it play it again. But this time, I think I want to try to put together some play groups from an entirely different environment or different, mindset. People that haven't played with me before, just so I can so you can get, more. The more variety of play testers you have, the better your product will eventually become. First of all, because you'll see more. The more players you have go through something, the more gaps and holes you'll get a chance to identify and fill. But yeah, don't lose heart if you have a really, really good game concept in mind, and like I said, from what we've seen of it here, I think you do. Pursue it, and if you need a little help too with the focus, I'm sure you'll be able to get people to help you and build that elevator pitch so that you can sell it to a bunch of players. And that's all you really, if that's what you really need, then that's fine. And after you've run through players, then you'll decide, what else needs tweaking or what else needs adjusting if you do want to market it. Recently started working on a few ideas for the settings, tiers of cannons for the world, and rifles and such. It's fun to explore and try to write gunfighting rules, yeah. As well as how guns exist in the world of Magic. Yeah, I personally, that's where and one of the reasons I think I focus on that like 1200s era is I get to basically just say in my head, gunpowder doesn't exist. All right, there are no guns. All right, I've got catapults. I've got I have propulsion weapons, but I don't have gunpowder. And that's because D&D and Pathfinder never really handled powder weapons very well. And there's a reason for that too, because it's very hard to design a weapon that's not overpowered for low-level characters, right off the bat. And if you tone them down, now they're not believable. I fire my pistol at point blank range. Okay, you do 3 points of damage. What's that? I should be able to insta-kill him from here. But if you could insta-kill something, then you're overpowered. Now, yes, you could have the same argument too. I fire my bow at point blank range. Why am I not killing him on one shot there too? But again, for us in the modern age, it's easier to suspend disbelief when dealing with arrow damage versus bullet damage. All right, because we don't all experience arrow damage all the time, so it's easy for us to envision it needing more than one arrow to kill something. Whereas, we know how many bullets can kill. All you have to do is turn on the news every day, and you see that. So, Guns in the Dungeon Master Guide. Yeah, I mean, again, that's a flavor thing. If you're doing Age of Sail, you almost need cannon. At least cannon, if not, you could limit yourself. Do you have rifles, or are they just muskets? All right, because then you start dealing with accuracy issues. If I were going to do gunpowder, and again, especially this even goes back in history. You'll have like the arquebus, the really crude first pass weapons. All right, where it was easy to explain misses, because they just weren't that accurate. And you could probably explain low damage because most of the ammunition was handmade and imperfect. So you can get away with that. But as soon as you start getting into rifle bore, and any kind of cartridge guns, like 6-shooters or something like that, now again, you're dealing with. I mean, think about in the real world. All right. In the 1700s, why did you have tight formation military that all raised their guns and fired together at another tight formation military? It's because you couldn't possibly aim for another person. All right, the safest place to be, in a long range musket battle, is right down the sights of the guy who's shooting at you, because the odds are very good that that's not where the bullet's going. So you had tight formation shooting. When all of a sudden rifle bores came on, and now I could actually point at something and hit it, then tactics had to change. You have to deal with all of that sort of thing. Guns are fine, but not realistic, as Bob said. Crossbows and bows in D&D aren't realistic either. No, they're really not. But like I said, crossbows and bows are far enough removed from our current technology that it's easier for us to suspend disbelief. and say, okay, that's how bows work. You know, it's harder to say, okay, that's how guns work, simply because, you know, we live with guns. You know, it's even easier to suspend disbelief and say that's how magic works, because we don't live with that at all. So we can, you know, we can let our imaginations run wild with magic. That's why it's so fun. Okay. What else do we got? Have we scared off everybody else in the chat, by the way, or is everybody enjoying this discussion? Maybe I will actually get a little bit of work done, but we'll see. Life-threatening flash flooding. I have my TV on in my room just in case anything important flashes up, storm-related, but it's still moving quickly. Yep, the first heavy rain bands are here, but that's not a big deal. It's actually going to stop raining for me for a little while. Good. Yeah, life-threatening flash flooding. Again, I certainly not on my block. Certainly not, you know, not in my immediate area. There are a couple of parts of town near a small creek that might have to deal with flooding issues before this is over, but flooding is the least of my worries. You know, I've said many times, like I said, if I have floodwaters coming to my door, then there's a problem. There's a real problem, and the water is probably the least of my problems at that point. So, what do we want to do? What I was going to start saying, what I was going to start doing today. Again, if I want to start building articles on things like, you know, quick descriptions of the mountain ranges and things, then I am going to need to have some of that boring statistical information. You know, like, again, what's the tallest mountain? How long is the mountain? You know, how does the mountain range run? You know, all of that sort of thing. So what I started to do was I started to throw together an Excel spreadsheet. And you can use Excel, you know, this could be Excel, it could be Google Sheets, it really doesn't matter. Size this. Do that. You're probably only seeing part of it right now. And for the mountain ranges, for example, I need to take a few measurements just to have a few, you know, bits of statistical information. So that raises the question, how do I get these measurements? For example, you know, the teeth of the sea. How do I know how long it is on the mountain? Well, this is where I go back to the original generation of my world, which was this product called Fractal Terrain Generator, or Fractal Terrains. And if this looks a little different from the world map, that's simply because I've rotated. I just had a light flicker. Are we still there? Alright, am I still on stream? Yes, okay, good. The lights just flickered, which means a tree hit a wire somewhere. One of the things Fractal Terrains lets you do is reorient the map on a latitude longitude point. So if I go back to here, because this is the area that I'm focusing on first, what I've done in Fractal Terrain is refocused myself to this right about where the point in the Feywood there is going to be centered. And I did that so that, first of all, so that I can see that area in as close to a rectangular representation as possible. And second, so that I can take some rough measurements on things. And these aren't going to be, let's put it this way, none of these things are going to be perfect. But yeah, yeah, Fractal Terrains, unfortunately, it's 40 bucks. It is a one-shot purchase at least. But it's really powerful. If you missed my Sunday session, check the watch my Sunday stream where I actually walk through this and describe how it actually builds terrain for you. But what I'm going to use now is another one of the tools that comes with it, which is the distance meter. So the Teeth of the Sea, for example, is my mountain range that runs up here and kind of curls and goes off to the side. Well, if I take the little ruler, oh, and by the way, this will give everybody an idea of the scale of this area. Like I said, I'm working on this, what looks like this tiny little region on the world. Well, if my mountain range starts here and ends here, that's 3,200 miles. So I'm going to just make a note of that. So yes, this little region that I'm working on is about a 3,000 miles square. Now, as far as east-west, from about the edge of the forest to the sea, on average, is about 500 miles. All right, so that's not a tiny mountain range. It's not just one little ridge of mountains. This, by the way, those numbers are not unusual. If you look at the Rocky Mountain Range in the U.S., those numbers are probably pretty equivalent. and most of these ranges are going to be like, some of them are actually bigger, like this piece of the Elven Ring, it's 1,000 miles of mountains. And think about that if you have players traveling through it, all right? That's a 2-month journey, at 20 miles a day. So distances are huge, but you can fix that with your world too. Like I said, this is an Earth-sized world. All right, yours doesn't have to be. All right, you can have continents that are much smaller. You can have, that's the beauty of world building, is you can design whatever you want. I just happen to like the look of this one. There are a couple of interesting features about this world, by the way. If you look at the ocean layout, you have there's an ocean piece up here that looks like it is isolated, and actually it is from the rest. But from here, you can travel all the way around here to that side, and then come off here, and then come all the way through here. So if you wanted to travel by sea from this point to this point, you got to go around the world. Which does make for some interesting possibilities. Although there might be some choices, like there's a little narrow point right here. Maybe somebody builds a canal there and charges lots of money for ships to go through it, so that they don't have to go all the way around the world. There might be at least enough technology to do that. So anyway, let me get back to what I was doing. The other mountain range I care about here is the Iron Hills, the Iron Mountains. They're about 2,800, but they're fatter, and by about 800. I'm going to have to take a very, very, very quick break. I do need to check something because the wind is blowing. So if you folks don't mind, please stick with me. I will be back in a minute or two. I'm going to throw up my... be right back. Yes, you'll have some nice music to hear while I'm gone, but I will be right back. Okay, I am back. Sorry for that, folks. I had to check on my big fuzzy alarm clock. I have a border collie who does not do thunder and lightning. I'm guessing there's at least somebody out there that can commiserate with that. Let's catch up here. Would I mind looking at your current Wonder Draft map? Love to get my opinion on it. Sure. No problem. Can you link it? Links are legal here. Yeah, she's. Everybody's heard border collies are smart. Since she was a puppy, she never liked thunder. And she's never been a thunder. Thunder always scared her. By the time she was 1 year old, she had learned to associate that bright flash of white that happens before the thunder with the thunder. So now, if it's a thunderstorm at night, even if the storm is far off and the thunder doesn't even really rumble in, if she sees the flash in the sky, she starts to panic. By the time she was 2, she had learned to associate the fact that thunder and lightning only happens when it rains. So then, 3 drops of water fall out of the sky, and she starts to panic. And then, thanks to the wonderful senses of what we call dumb animals, by the time she was 3, she apparently learned to associate falling barometric pressure with the fact that it was probably going to rain. So now, somewhere between 3 and 6 hours before the thunderstorm even gets here, she's cowering, looking for some place to hide, looking for reassurance, scrambling all over the place and all that kind of great stuff. And we've put up with that for 9 years. So the funny thing is in the winter, because we'll have the pressure fall and she'll get buggy, and she'll start to get all nervous and worried. But then it starts to snow instead of rain. And as much as she hates rain and thunder and lightning, she loves snow more than she hates those. So if it's a snowstorm outside and we can get her to look out the window and realize that it's snowing, now I don't care what the weather's like, Mom and Dad, we have to go out and play. So this is why we have animals, because they're challenging. Kids grow up, you keep pets. Okay, let's get caught up here again. What am I looking at your map? Yes, I'll look at your map if you could post it. Did you post it? Not yet. Depending on how big that is across, there's actually a method where they would literally empty the ship. Yeah, that's true. Where that might be the cheapest thing to do is actually roll it. You'd have to build the ships to do it. To keep them in mind. I mean, some of the bigger Age of Sail vessels just didn't have the hulls for that. The hulls would collapse even if you tried to roll them. But that was certainly done with smaller, lighter ships of the time before that. I know the Vikings did it. But they're smaller scale ships. I don't think you could do that with a full-blown galleon or a man of war. So I think the rain band just died down, but we have pretty good steady winds going on right now. So you guys are looking into the Forever screen. I love that view in OBS when you're looking at when you're getting set up. It's one of those fun things that as you're prepping and you're looking at what are my viewers going to see, and all you can see is into Forever. And that's because, by the way, I only have one monitor. If I had two monitors, I'd have OBS on one of them, and I could actually be seeing. I could really be seeing what you guys are seeing. That is the one. Somebody was asking about starting the stream. You can do it with one monitor. I'm doing it with one monitor and a 12-year-old desktop. All right, so you don't need super high-tech, latest graphics cards and all that. They help, but they're not necessary. All right, you don't need the software. Again, all the software you need to get started is free. OBS Stream Manager is free. Streamlabs is another one, by the way. Basically, Streamlabs took the OBS open source code and customized it, put a few extra bells and whistles on it. You'll see I don't have the flashy borders that are rolling around my screen or whatever. That's because I'm not using Streamlabs. I'm just using the old OBS. And I'm sure I can probably find them out there. I just haven't gotten around to it. And there's more flashy lights. Okay. Like I said, as long as the power holds, we should be fine. Got another half hour to go. and there we sat with 3 monitors, and I could do with a 4th since working from home became a thing. Yeah, I've definitely decided I need a second. And one of these days, I'm gonna just pull the trigger on it. I've worked out a good kit build for a new computer with a friend of mine. I have it. I have all the parts list. All I have to do is order it and get started. And I'll even be able to do other things like play video games, because that is the problem with the 12-year-old machine. I actually tried to play Minecraft for the first. The funny thing is, I can play Bedrock Minecraft on a Realm, but I tried running Java Minecraft 2 nights ago, and it's too much for my poor machine. I have to knock the render distance down so short that it's unplayable. So where was I? I was measuring mountains. Yes, Java Minecraft, bless its heart, is a mess. It is. but it's special, and I think I'm hard pressed to find a world builder that doesn't like Minecraft, in one form or another. Would I recommend fractal trains if you don't plan on using it a lot? If you're gonna build one world, no. Um, Probably not. If especially, I mean, if $40 isn't an obstacle, then why not? But if $40 is an obstacle and you don't plan on building lots of worlds, this is the fifth or sixth world I've built out of it. Um, so I've probably got now. I got it as part of a bundle too, which is something you might look well. It comes in a bundle with Campaign Cartographer from Pro Fantasy. You can buy it standalone. I don't know if they're doing the bundle anymore, but when I bought Campaign Cartographer, that was actually the product I was buying, and this came along with the kit. And since then, Campaign Cartographer is a world map drawing system, that where you draw out your world and you stick your mountains on. You get maps that look kind of like the map you're looking at here, although not as pretty if you ask me. Although you can do interesting things with it. Just as a quick example, I'll show you this world in just right out of Campaign Cartographer. And I'm actually bringing up a picture that's going to have lots of bells and whistles, and it's one of my reference. I still keep it around because it's one of my reference pictures. But it's going to show you where all the cities are, and where all of the forests are, and where all the delves are. I don't think Campaign Cartographer, though, generates maps that are as crisp, and as vivid graphically as this is going to take a while to load. It usually does. Isaac, I remember using Minecraft to plan out a building layout for a World Anvil Challenge back in 2019. Yeah, you could certainly do that. What might be interesting too is build. It's like, especially if you're looking for artwork. For like build your headquarters. Go into a Minecraft creative world, build it in Minecraft, and take a screenshot of it. It can be exactly what you want. So anyway, yeah, this map was built purely in Campaign Cartographer, and you can see the mountain and the tree and the forest symbols. But the colors are all a little muted. The symbols weren't the greatest. They were better than nothing, but they weren't the greatest. So I have since graduated to Incarnate for my actual mapping, and that real map, the one that's behind the one you're seeing now. Basically, I took the blank version of this map, brought it into Incarnate, and retraced the coastlines, and then used Incarnate to actually art up the land and sea. But yeah, by the way, this does give you a quick view of my nice complicated world. I have country borders here. I have lots of cities. You can see the forests are in green. The delves are in that brownish kind of color. The cities are in black. What else am I missing? I do have the human kingdoms are bordered out. The only thing I didn't label on this map is the names of the seas, the names of the oceans, which is something I do have to fix in my new world. But yeah, so anyway, back to your question, Barbaros. If you're gonna spend a little bit of money to help you build a map, if you don't have a drawing tablet, I would probably recommend that you do that first. Oh, now are we still here? Because this time the lights flickered and my TV popped out. And if my TV popped out, that means my internet signal popped out. So can people still hear me? Can people still? Yeah, I'm still up. Good. This is the other reason I left the TV on, because if that TV goes dark, it means my cable / internet is probably going with it. I kind of expected these things to happen. Like I said, I was hoping, looking at the time that the storm was supposed to get to us, I'm really, really hoping I can make it to noon so that I can just, get through my stream, pass it off to somebody else, and then I'll go hide in a corner somewhere, or or sit out on my porch and watch the wind blow, depending on which way the wind is blowing. If the porch is sheltered, I might actually sit out there for a little bit and watch the wind. I love storms personally. So I was starting to say, you might actually, if you have a little bit of money and you need to spend, and you want to spend it on something useful, you might want to spend it on a drawing tablet. People are going to think I'm nuts, but the stuff I'm doing so far, here's my drawing tablet. And somebody again was talking on a stream last night about, I don't know how people can possibly do maps with a mouse. It's hard. It's very hard. It is impossible to get a mouse to move exactly the way you want to. They're good for point and clicks, but as far as tracing lines or getting detail in things that you want to draw, they're terrible. So if you got a tablet, and there are cheap tablets, I would put your money there, and then from there you can either look into, again, something like Incarnate, which will do world maps for you, and I think they even have a default seed kind of thing where you show me a default map and that sort of thing. I haven't done it because, like I said, I started with a world I knew I needed. Failing that, a couple of other products I use. Again, when you have the money, you get Photoshop. Until you have the money, I use a free product called Paint.net. It's got all the layering and most of the tool capabilities for just freehand drawing and shading and managing of multiple layers. Again, that's one of my major tools. Is Paint. Again, Paint.net. It's free. Once you get a little familiar with the tools, the magic wand is great. You have like 50 plus plugins. Oh, and on Paint.net, I haven't even played with the plugins. Yeah, that's another thing I need to start looking at. There are cheaper alternatives to Photoshop too. Yeah, GIMP, Krita, Fire. Yeah, there's a number there. But yeah, like I said, I've had Paint.net, and I've been happy with that. And I've used that in conjunction again with some of these other map tools too. One of my usual process, for example, I play on Roll20. I do my gaming on Roll20. When I build a map, let's say a battle map or a combat map, I will try to make sure I size it, so that it's an easy fit, grid-wise into whatever environment I'm using. But if I have to make any adjustments, or more importantly, if I have to trim or clip something, like if I wanted to take a clip, and this is something that I will do a lot, if I want to focus on, if I want to build a region map for, let's say for this North Mountain, for this North little, not quite island thing that's up here on the top, then what I will do is first I'll come in here and I'll go to my change projection and I will change the latitude to be something like, that looks like, oh, about maybe 70. That didn't move nearly as much as I thought it would. Not quite sure why. Oh, you know what? You know what I'm going to do? Let's do this, because I know this works. I'm going to change the projection to an actual globe. There we go. All right, so I'll play with the latitude and longitude to center on the piece I want, and save this image, and then I'll jump into Paint or Paint.net, and I will clip out the piece I want, and then that's the piece that I'll import into Incarnate to use as an underlayment to trace out the borders. You know, so that's my personal mapping approach. And again, by playing with the latitude and longitude, I can cover any part of the world I want. So there's my 0, 0 point. Again, this is the area that I'm focusing on now. This is the area when I want to be working on where the elves were, first came to be. So yes, it does rivers too. You can turn rivers on and off, and the rivers are just recommendations. I usually don't go with all the rivers that they use. This tool, we'll play with this a little bit more. I can show you some of the stuff you can do with here. One of the things I like about it, what I'm going to do is, because I don't want to, I can't afford to lose this map. But what I'm going to do is pull up the one that I had the other day. And again, for example, you're doing an Age of Sail. So I have to wait for this for a few seconds. Okay. So yeah, that's a similar. Now, if I want to build a new map, all right, I want a synthetic world. All right, let's say we want stupid high peaks in this world. We want 45,000 high peaks. We want 25,000 foot deep seas. We'll make it Earth-sized. Roughness is good the way it is. You're doing Age of Sail, so you're going to want more water. And you're probably going to want more islands or smaller continents, so you can play with that too. And then you just say finished, and boom, it creates a world for you. Alright, and if you like it, you go with it. And if you don't like it, now I can change again. I can change the map projection, so that, because right now we're only looking at half the world, obviously. We'll go back to the projection that I like to see the whole world. All right, you got a whole bunch of little stringy islands. Maybe that's not quite what you have in mind. Maybe you want slightly larger land masses. So now we have that. Maybe you want even bigger land masses. So now you got that. And it's just going to keep randomly generating and if you don't like, if this looks like about the right size of land masses. Now this is an interesting one because it's a couple of continents. They're big, but they're not stupid huge. You've got some interesting islands. You've got some little island chains around. So maybe that's good, but you want That's not exactly what you have in mind. I can come down here and say next world, and it'll keep those settings, and it'll build another new one. So you can keep playing around with these things until you get to the world you want. All right, let's say you want a world of, here's the water world where all you have is mountaintops sticking out of the ocean. You know. Now the other interesting thing, and I'm gonna bring the seed volume back down and the land volume back up to play with this. The other thing it will give you hints and tips on, all right, is I can look at, for example, where is it estimating. Oh, actually, yeah, I don't want to play with the rainfall settings. I want to say now, come on. I'm confusing it. This is not a good thing. There we go. What do the rainfall bands look like on the world? All right, you can still kind of make things out, but you can see where it's dry and where it's wet. What about temperatures? Where is it hot and where is it cold? What about general climate? And there's a key buried someplace that explains what all of these different things are. So now again, I don't take these things as absolute, but I do use them as tips. The climate is especially handy for guessing what mountains should be snow-capped. And there's a bunch of other things that you can play with. I still haven't played with every little tool in this product, but it is a lot of fun. But again, if you're building one world, you don't necessarily need this. If you're building one world, and especially if you're building one region of a world, then you can. Let's go back to the altitude. And yeah, right now rivers are not turned on in here, but if I come into here and say find the rivers, again, how detailed do I want them to be? We'll stick with medium. And it works from the principle of water flowing from high to low. And you do get to play, do I want long rivers or do I want short rivers? So this is kind of longish, and you can see now I have some river guides in there. I will do the rivers again just to give me hints as to where I might want to put rivers in the world. But I don't necessarily exactly trace them. Again, if you're doing one world though, you can do this stuff freehand. I'll just do that. You can do this stuff freehand and get away with it, and you'll be fine. Like I said, if you're going to spend, if you only have a little bit of money to spend it on a tablet. Don't make the mistake I did. Spend it on a tablet first, because if you have a tablet, now you can go into Paint.net or Incarnate, and you can draw them, whatever map you want, and you can make it as islandy as you need and as jagged as you need. The other thing is you don't necessarily need a whole world map. I started here because I could, because I had the tool. If you're building especially an Age of Sail world, you don't need to have a full world map. You can build a regional map that has, the few main islands where most of your early action is going to go on. You'll hear people starting, talking about agile world building. Agile world building comes from the same mindset as agile computing, which basically means Don't get too bogged down in the details. Don't spend all your time specking out every little thing about every little thing. Build what you need. Be prepared to change it if you have to. And in a link related system like World Anvil, that's easy. All right, anticipate what you need now. Focus on that. Make little references and links to the other stuff, like article stubs kind of thing. Like as I'm building the Feywood, I've made mention of the First Kingdom. All right, the First Kingdom is an area way over here. My players aren't getting to the First Kingdom for a long, long time. All right, but I know it exists, and I know that I'm going to have to spec it out someday. But for now, an article stub that says this is the first kingdom that man built. This is where the humans were awakened. This is where they first settled and learned to live together. That's all I need. All right, I don't need to who cares what the capital city is or how many cities there are in there? My players don't care that yet. All right, and I don't need to either. So that's again more world building advice. You really need to focus on where you're playing, and make sure you get that. I mean, I'm spending lots of time in the Feywood. All right, I can show you. I mean, again, we have this little area here. Well, that's not the only map I have of the Feywood. All right, and these are, by the way, over the next couple of Sundays. These are some of the maps that I need to break down. And this will give you another example again of what Campaign Cartographer looks like as opposed to Incarnate, because I need to redraw these maps in Incarnate. So here's my Campaign Cartographer map of just the area of the frontier lands that we're dealing with, and there's my Enmere. All right, and there's actually Cliffport isn't even on the map; it's off to the side. And at this level, I've defined some smaller towns. All right, you see, I do have I do have rivers and things drawn in here. But I've drawn some smaller towns, and I've drawn the major roads. But again, even here, these aren't all of the roads necessarily, or all of the towns. Every little hexagon on this map is 125 miles across, so this is still a huge map. All right, this is still a few thousand miles. This is like 3,000 miles square that you're looking at here. So this is like the map of the United States sized. All right, so we have that map, but again, even that's too big for what my players are working in. So this is the real working map that I have. All right, and now if I put the grid back on here, these are five miles. Let's put the grid on. Now those are 25-mile hexes. So even this is large, but 25 miles is about a day's travel. So now I know. Now Dryad Falls was on the last map. Faybridge Crossing wasn't. It was too small to make it to the last map. And this trail wasn't on the last map, and neither was the village of Spud Barrow. So yes, all of you strawberry lovers, now you know where they come from. There it is right there. This little thing right in the dead center of that, the Bugbear's Head Inn, that's the main home base of operations for my first level characters. So this area, which is about 150 miles in all direction, 200 miles in all direction, this is the area that all of the early action for my campaign, for my campaign setting is going to focus in. All right, and my goal is to get the players maybe to 3rd level with about 9 adventure arcs. 6 adventure arcs to get to 3rd level, maybe get them to 4th level. But my plan is to develop 6 to 9 adventure arcs within this region, and package them up. And welcome to the Feywood. There's, ultimately that's a product. You're welcome to the Feywood. And then my players will move on to another area that'll have different adventures for different levels or whatever. I'll probably move them north. Now, whether I don't know that my current player set are going to ever really get into the Seafarer Dwarves things, but I'm going to start working on them too, but as a set of their own. Welcome. Another focus area for another campaign setting. So that's the attitude or the direction you really want to take. Now, eventually, this stuff all links up into one big world. All right, but again, I'm thinking, from the standpoint of adventures, and you need to focus on where are your players going to go. All right, you need to make sure that where they can go, you understand. All right, that you as the creator of the world have a real good handle on where the players are going tomorrow. You don't care where they're going next year yet. You're basically drawing half your world. It may have mostly finished version on World Anvil. Attached to an article, but you're only going to give it to players a little part of it. Yeah. So even there, again, you can rough sketch out half the world. The part that they're not playing in yet might change. Again, as you put more detail into your small section, you might find, for example, that you need to invent some far-off city. So, that city might just be a name. As far as your current player situation is concerned, but you need to put it somewhere on a map. So you can do that. Without getting into all the details of the city. Even my cities there, and Mir and Cliffport, they're important because I have players that their backstories say they come from there. So I have to flesh them out a little bit more than anything else. There are other cities that are relatively close, but they don't have anything to do with my players right now, and they're not going there in the foreseeable future. So they're literally just names on a map. I don't have to draw them out. I certainly don't have to get down to street level details in them. And won't, because I don't have time to. If and when the campaign looks like it's going to move into Endmere, for example, and become a city-oriented campaign for a while, then I'm going to have to deal with street maps. But not until then. And looking at the time, it looks like I am going to make it, unless the power goes out in the next 2 minutes. So this was an interesting session. I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't really sure what, if any, work I was going to get done. I don't have a problem with not getting a lot done. I, like many other people, are still kind of decompressing after summer camp. Summer camp was a trip and a half. I love it. Let's make this go away. Start to clean up a little bit so that I can make through. Yep, except for this one spot that I put on a coral reef. I'm basically drawing half the world. Is weirdly important to me now, and literally across the continent. Thankfully, that doesn't affect the land around it much. Yeah, I mean, again, the parts that are important, you focus on, and that's kind of what agile world building is about. Is you can't take a pure top-down approach. Once you have your basic land masses laid out, and the really, really large main structures at least identified or named, you don't have to go into detail. I do not have to apply the same amount of detail to the northern Broken Range as I do to the Teeth of the Sea as a mountain range. Why? Because my players are right next to the teeth of the sea. They're likely to run into it. All right, so I need to know more about the teeth of the sea. Are there mining camps along the hills, in the foothills? What resources do come out of there? What kind of creatures live there? All right, I don't care who lives in the Broken Range right now. All right, because I'm not writing up there. I'm writing down here. All right, and that's the best advice I can give is to stay focused, because otherwise you just go nuts. So with all that said, it is now 12 o'clock. Let us see who we can raid. I'm not even sure who's on the calendar today. Let's see if anybody's on the raid channel indicator has been acting up the last couple of days. It hasn't been showing potential raid candidates, and right now it's not even showing anything. Yeah, raid channels I follow. Oh, okay, well, we have a choice. Alright, I'm going to give you guys a choice real quick. Do we raid Toblin or do we raid Tillers? Toblin or Tillers? Toblin's a regular. Pixel Riffs doesn't count. He's my Minecraft guy. This is about world building. By the way, anybody who is really into Worldcraft, I do recommend Pixel Riffs. But anybody? Any preferences? No preferences? We're going to go with Toblin. Alright. So, yeah, you know what? I don't know, is Tillers actually on the schedule? Can anybody check the schedule real quick and see if Tillers is he really on the schedule, or is he just messing around? Somebody? Anybody? Is anybody still there? I'm going to give Tillers a raid. Oh, somebody just jumped into there, so he must still be there. Okay. What's he doing? Looks like he's doing Cody stuff. Well, that's different. Let's go a rating on Tillers. Okay, everybody, thank you all for coming. I'll be back here again on Thursday morning. Thursday morning, we'll be actually looking into building adventures in World Anvil. So until then, have a good one. Everybody else stay safe, stay healthy. And it's time for me to go find a nice... Oh, looks like that. Look at that. It looks like most of the worst of the rain is passing me already. But now comes the wind. All right, have a good time, folks. Enjoy the rest of your day. And let's all surprise him, because he's not, he's there, but let's surprise him.